Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to this CIPS webinar. We're delighted to have you with us, and a big thank you for joining us today. I'm James Moore, part of the CIPS editorial and content team, and I'll be facilitating today's session and hosting any questions that come in. As a reminder, this is part of our Risk and Resilience Week webinar series. It's our third of four webinars taking place this week, all designed to give you better insight into the key risks facing procurement and supply chains at present, of which we know there are many, as well as practical strategies or tools to address them. And today we're going to be focusing on that second element, specifically in managing third-party supplier risk. We're joined by the team from WNS Procurement to uncover the evolving role of AI in the ongoing and continuous management of supply risk, where it can help, but also crucially, where it can't help, and where the expertise of procurement and supply chain professionals is and will remain critical for the future. Our expert speakers will explore these challenges today and also share a little bit about the important factors that you should be considering if and when you decide to opt for a technology platform or tools to support you in managing third-party risks from suppliers. And within that scope, I also want to highlight that there will be time for questions. So please do send any you have in for our speakers. Please just keep them relevant to the discussion as close as possible, but equally give us your best shot. I'm sure our speakers will be happy to answer any questions on the subject. We'll do our best to respond and give you the answers to help. You should find the Q&A box just below me in the video player. And we've got a few slides to run through today, but just send those questions in when you think of them. We'll either come to them sort of partly through the presentation, or we'll come to them afterwards once our speakers have finished giving their presentation. There's a couple of additional things worth noting as well, actually. You can opt to watch us in full screen if you'd prefer. There will be some really excellent slides coming up with lots of great information on them and a couple of good graphics in there as well. So do be aware that this is an option and it's worth pointing that out to you. All you need to be aware of is that you'll need to minimize to use the Q&A functionality. So if you're watching and you suddenly have a question, just minimize and then you'll be able to see that Q&A box again. And today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So if you have any connection issues, anything urgent comes up, you've suddenly got to rush into a meeting, you're called in by your boss, don't worry. You will be able to watch back on demand. And you'll also be able to share with colleagues who you feel may be interested or team members who may find this useful as well. But that is enough from me. We'll get going and introduce the real stars of the show today. I'm delighted to welcome Vabhav Jain, Vice President and Head of Digital Capabilities and Solutions at WNS Procurement. Welcome, Vabhav. Do you want to just add to that intro, share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. I'm Vaibhav Jain, Head of Digital Solutions and Capabilities at WNS Procurement. Overall, I have 2 decades of experience in research, advisory, and analytics, working for procurement and strategy departments of Fortune 2000 companies, as well as private equity and consulting firms. Before heading the digital capabilities at WNS Procurement, I was heading research and analytics function at the SmartCube, which was acquired by WNS in 2022. I am based out of New Delhi, India, and look forward to sharing our experiences and perspective on this topic of AI in supplier risk management in the coming few minutes with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vabhav. And we'll look forward to hearing a little bit more about that Smart Cube later on as well, but lots of good content to get through before then. And welcome also to Sain Debroy, also from WNS, but head of the risk solution arm, I believe. So an ideal additional guest when we're talking about risk in procurement. Sain, do you want to just introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Hi, everyone. I'm Sain Debroy. As you can see, I'm the head of risk solution at WNS Procurement. Overall, I have 15 years of experience. Most of it has been in the space of risk management, plus procurement and supply chain advisory. I have been with the SmartCube, which was acquired by WNS Procurement for more than 10 years now. And prior to that, I have had experience with consulting as well as Big Four companies as well. And happy to be joining this webinar today to discuss this topic on AI's role in supplier risk management.
Brilliant, thank you both. And I believe you're both sort of on a national holiday in India, so we really appreciate you taking the time out to join us today and share your expertise. And we'll let you get back to some relaxing afterwards. But get those questions in. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them over the next hour. Look, great to have you both on, and we'll get cracking, I think. And I'm going to pass over to you, Vabhav, to kick us off with a bit of an introduction to TPRM or third-party risk management, as I guess it's better known to give it its full name, and to set the scene a little. I may jump in, as I mentioned, from time to time if we get some questions in from the audience. So, as a reminder, do get those questions in, but just to give you guys a heads up when you're presenting. But for now, I will pass over to you.
Sure. Thanks, James. So this is the agenda we'll be covering in the next 30 odd minutes. Start with the overview, then we'll move to the role of AI in supplier risk management, moving to evolving state of AI, then AI adoption, including challenges and what it takes to have a successful AI adoption. Then moving on to selection of partners and what the checklist looks like. And lastly, before moving on to the Q&A, a quick overview about our in-house tool at WNS Procurement on this specific topic, Smart Risk Pro. So over to Cyan to walk us through and provide a quick overview of the supplier risk management landscape, what it entails, so that we can start the ground zero running to have everyone on the same bandwidth. Cyan, over to you.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Thank you. So we're quickly showing the TPRA, the supplier risk management process here, so that it will be easier to connect with the AI's role later down in each of this step. So this is a standard process for supplier risk management, starting with business verification, and then you go to the step of inherent risk analysis, which is really the starting point for deciding how suppliers need to be prioritized, as not all suppliers are as important. The next step is risk screening, where you take into account public and third-party information to get essential risk information on your suppliers. Then the next step is due diligence. Due diligence is usually not done for all suppliers. It's done for very critical and important suppliers that are important to the business. And then once the due diligence has been closed, you look at the risk impacts. Once the risks have been identified, which are the risks that need to be considered, their likelihood, and you then decide what are the risk mitigation steps, which is the second last step here. And then once the risk mitigation step with the controls, whether you decide which controls need to be put in place, and then acknowledge the gaps that cannot be controlled and need to be accepted as a part of your risk appetite. And then you move on to the risk monitoring phase, where for all or maybe the critical supplies, you decide that you need continuing monitoring of those risks, and you do that as a continuous process. Now, as a part of all of this, there could be a reassessment of the risks as well, which could be triggered by material risk events, contract renewal stage, or as per predefined risk and impact thresholds as well. I think now moving on, in terms of risk coverage in today's landscape, I think these are very important risk heads, covering financial, operational, environmental, social, governance and control, as well as performance factors. And you will see that all important risk factors are covered within each of these heads. I'll not go through all of these individual items one by one, but I'll just highlight a few things. Like under financial, look at solvency. Under operational, you look at product quality, information security, which is usually at times also shown separately. And under environmental, social, governance and control, you cover all sustainability and ESG aspects that are relevant today and are also suggested by leading global organizations. Under performance, you can cover, supplier SLAs and KPIs, and all of these should ideally come together in your risk coverage. Moving on, I think this is important to acknowledge that there are certain regulations which are actually helping drive the adoption of SRM solutions, and some of the key regulations are mentioned here. These are indicative, not exhaustive at all, but I think these regulations are important because one, these regulations, while they are not directly mandating the adoption of SRM solutions, they are, mandating the need for controls around data privacy and security, various regulatory compliances like Modern Slavery Act, and social obligations for the businesses. And as a result, for businesses to comply with these regulations, they have to adopt SRM solutions. And these are key driving forces behind the adoption.
Thanks, Sayan.
Yep.
Now, keeping this framework in mind, which Sayan just presented, we shall move to the main topic of the webinar, which is on the role of AI in supplier risk management. Here on the screen is a snapshot from a recent Deloitte survey on top motivators for investment in AI for TPRM process. Not surprisingly, and in line with typical expectations from AI for most use cases, an overwhelming majority considered cost effectiveness through efficiencies as their primary reason for adopting AI. As per the same survey, organizations recognized that financial exposure following a major third party incident continues to rise, with nearly half of the respondents believing that potential damages could exceed $50 million. And this was the main reason for them to scale up their risk management program. And herein lies the contradiction and the reason why a significant number of AI adoptions across organizations fail. Because a lot of times we tend to view AI adoption in isolation. Otherwise, how can you explain a mere 5% of the respondents considering loss avoidance as their primary driver for AI adoption when that is the primary objective of any supplier risk management program? It is imperative that for successful adoption across any program, we consider AI as a means to an end and not an end in itself. And it should align with the fundamental objectives of that program. In the case of third-party risk management, this should mean enhancing the effectiveness and speed of decision making to prevent losses from supplier incidents. And if this objective is achieved through AI, cost efficiencies and regulatory compliance, which is point number 1 and point number 3 in this survey, will automatically follow. I will now hand over to Sayan to discuss the state of AI and how it is evolving before we discuss key aspects to consider for successful adoption of AI.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Okay, now starting with the role of AI in each of the key stages, starting with business verification. Today, the role of AI is mostly geared towards human involvement, but the role that AI is playing today is with some important things like entity matching across databases, identification of duplicates across the databases, which is a big problem even today. Now, over the next 12 to 24 months, we see this usage to only increase further as more entity resolution techniques become better and finer over time. Plus, there is a greater scope for linking of other external as well as third-party data sources that are evolving with time that will help undertake this business verification exercise even more efficiently. So in the future, there will be greater level of automation with real-time data feeds from various systems. Now, where does that place the role of humans in the entire process? And we believe it will be a critical component of all solutions going forward, even with increased role of AI. So in this space also, humans will have a key role to play with regard to policies and rules for entity linking and review and confirmation of ambiguous matches, because the entity resolution part is not so easy, and there needs to be thresholds and rules that define how entities are linked, and these will still be primarily human driven along with sanity checks. Moving on to the second item, inherent risk analysis, which is a very critical step before you do risk screening and due diligence. Today, the role of AI in automation, and we look at it at a broader sense, is driven by rule-based segmentation by spend, which is very common. And then there are also automated prioritization and triage workflows as well. Now, the role of AI is going to increase significantly in this space as we see more external data being included within this inherent risk analysis, which today is more based on internal data and internal assessments of the stakeholders regarding the suppliers. And then going forward, we see there is greater scope for self-adjusting risk tiers. So instead of static supplier tiers, which are decided at the beginning but do not change later, the more dynamic risk tiers can come into play, which also define how risk coverage and everything else should flow over here onwards. The role of humans in this space, as it will happen in the future, will be handling exceptions. Like we also see in real life, there are a lot of cases where you are deciding whether a certain supplier, given a certain unique circumstance, needs to be placed in a certain category. Those decisions need to be handled by humans. Plus, in certain cases, the data that is available in, say, public or third-party sources may not be good, and the business stakeholder might have to update those in rare occasions. That's a practical reality, and will continue. Moving on to risk screening. Uh, in risk screening stage, there's a AI role is pretty high today, as of today, and a lot of process regarding extraction and processing of data is already quite automated, and there is a good level of detection of early warning signals from various data sources, such as compliance screening involving sanctions, money laundering, things like that. In the future, the role of AI will increase even further, meaning that from there its application in specific risk domains is expected to be extended to other risk domains as well. Plus, we see adoption of behavioral analytics and sentiment analysis being a key dimension, as it will not only take into account the existing data, but also the pattern and the behavior of certain suppliers over time. So that will create a lot of insight into the suppliers. The role of human beings in future in this area would be validating certain flags, because you can also have a lot of false positives being flagged by AI/ML models, so those need to be checked and validated, as well as configuration of the screening criteria and the match rules in this area. Moving on, in the due diligence space, the role of AI has just started, I would say. It's mostly in the pilot stage, where you are having things like AI assisted, DDQ, review to some extent, and there's a fair bit of automation of this entire due diligence work. But going forward, we see the role of Gen AI becoming more prevalent in this area, primarily with regard to first level review of supplier disclosures, and more importantly, to combine supplier disclosures coming from due diligence with external and third party data to give a more holistic insight. This is usually missing today, but with Gen AI coming up, this will become much more easier, and you will see more adoption of this technology. The role of human beings in this area will remain as a critical part, because all of those supplier disclosures need to be reviewed and approved by human beings, plus decisions regarding onboarding and contracting with the suppliers, acknowledging those risks, need to be made by humans due to accountability. Moving on, in the risk impact and likelihood analysis, today, a few platforms are offering simulation of risk scenarios and impact likelihood at a basic level. But going forward, we see this becoming a more widespread thing, with dynamic risk impact and likelihood analysis also coming to the forefront. This is especially important because risk impact and likelihood analysis today is a more human-driven activity, where decisions regarding this are made by humans. But we see AI becoming a helping hand to human reviewers in the future in this area, along with autonomous risk modeling to help the human reviewers take better decisions. As you can see, human role will remain with regard to interpretation of complex scenarios, and any suggestions given by the AI, and making decisions as per the risk appetite, as to what risks need to be managed now versus the things that can be deferred for the moment. Moving on to risk mitigation, I think there are a lot of new AI recommendation modules are being currently being added in various tools. However, this is primarily human-driven exercise even today, but some of the pilot stages, some AI-powered recommendations are coming up, and these are only going to get strengthened over time. In the next 12 to 24 months, we see a more widespread adoption and increase in the usage of automated AI-driven recommendations for users so they can make faster decisions. These will be supported by suggestions and analysis, which will be more contextual. Plus, we feel that there'll be a greater role of AI agents going forward, helping users do things more productively, efficiently. Now, role of humans in this area is also very critical in terms of accountability and things like that, especially for approval of mitigation plans. So if AI is giving you a lot of recommendations, a human needs to decide which are the ones that need to be carried forward for execution. So that will be an area where humans will play a big role in the future as well. And finally, the risk monitoring part. Here, the picture is slightly more AI driven, I would say, is more on the side of AI and automation today, where a lot of monitoring is happening autonomously, if I may put it that way. And it's covering a lot of risk areas. Risk monitoring has become very widespread. But then there are also a lot of improvements that are possible today, especially with regard to additional sources of risk, as well as AI agents taking up more role in the entire risk validation process. And to that, I come to the last point on role of humans, is because, like I mentioned, AI, while it's very much prevalent in this area, there are still cases of false positives, or a lot of noise coming from different sources when you get the risk feeds. So role of human beings to validate these risk feeds becomes even more important. And it is primarily an area of focus for us, because we in the practical world see that a lot of false positives and noise gets generated in this area. And there is definitely a role of human beings, even if small, will remain to ensure that clients, customers get the right feeds and not noise.
So, Sion, just to come in here because we've had a great question in, so I wanted to jump in if you don't mind. It really interesting. I think one of the things that strikes me is this role that there's a few roles that kind of cross the board that humans are going to play in the future, and I think being strategic and understanding what the rules are that should be in place, how the validation requirements that are involved. And also a lot of the final decisions, that is still made with human input. And as you mentioned, that these false positives happen are still occurring in AI. So it's important to have that human element. It's really important to have that strategic understanding of your risk appetite as a business and your risk
Yeah.
portfolio and also of your suppliers. And that's great to hear from a professional point of view, because those skills are really vital. That knowledge, that expertise that procurement brings in is still going to be vital in the future. But back to the question, is there one critical example where AI is currently failing in its role in third-party risk management, and maybe one area where you expect that to remain, and then for it to remain human-driven even in the
Sure.
future?
Yeah, I think, especially if the first example that comes to my mind is the AI-based supply chain mapping. AI-based supply chain mapping has gone, has been hyped a lot, but it looks appealing to procurement and supply chain managers. But a big problem with AI-based supply chain mapping is uh, there is very limited content and data out there on which basis this thing is done. Plus, as a result of this, the accuracy levels are very low. So that's one area where I think just adoption of this AI-based supply chain mapping may not work as fine. And you might have to look at hybrid supply chain mapping where you do AI plus supplier disclosures in conjunction to have a more effective, visibility into your sub-tier supply chain. One area where it is AI is working really well is with regard to this risk monitoring, which I just mentioned earlier. Risk monitoring is a very grunt level work. There are a lot of pieces that can be automated very well, and here the role of AI has been increasing tremendously, and it's giving very good returns. And this will remain in the future as well. So that's one area like risk monitoring, which is working really well today. So, like in any area, you'll have to choose things where AI works well, and if it doesn't work well and needs more upgrade over time.
Interesting. And
And
what
into
about where
the
humans are going to remain sort of fundamental to the future? It doesn't matter, how good AI gets, where you think, I mean, we won't go too far into the future because, you never know what happens in 50 years' time. But, where will humans remain sort of fundamental to certain roles?
one area
Yeah.
that will and should always stay with humans would be decision making when it comes to what corrective actions to take for risk remediations, for example. So, I mean, AI can detect risks and provide insights, suggestions, track and report progress, follow up with stakeholders, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, a human will need to assess impact on operations and then prioritize and decide right actions. This could be with or without involving the vendor, and coordinate with internal and external stakeholders to implement response to that specific action. So this, at least for the foreseeable future, we feel will strongly remain with humans and should remain with humans as well.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you both. I'll let you get back to the presentation. Just a quick question. We've had somebody ask whether the slides might be available to be shared with them afterwards. Will that be okay if we can do that with attendees?
Yes, we can do that absolutely. And in fact, one thing we can also share is there's a topic on which Sayan has also written a blog, right, specifically
Supply
on
chain
that
mapping.
area
Yeah.
that he was referring to, the supply chain mapping, where it is AI is failing and why it will fail, right? So we'll also share that link to you and you can read, right? It's a very interesting, I think, point of view that Sayan has presented over there. So absolutely, we'll share that.
Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. I'm sure that'll be music to our listeners' ears because I personally love those slides. The little scale with AI and human impact. I thought were great. So, but I will pass back over to you guys to carry on the presentation.
Sure. Great. So we will now look at the key challenges in AI adoption and how to overcome those challenges. First up is lack of strategic alignment. This is typically due to unclear ROI, inadequate business cases, and poor alignment between AI projects and functional goals. As we noticed in the survey response findings we just discussed earlier, right? Second is poor data quality and accessibility. We need to acknowledge that any AI system requires vast amounts of clean, structured, and integrated data. But most organizations today struggle on this count due to legacy of fragmented systems and siloed data pools. This factor is primarily tied often also to the maturity of digital infrastructure that resides within an organization. The third key challenge is the limited in-house AI talent pool, specifically for organizations who want to develop the tools and products all in-house. We believe it is impractical and very costly to maintain AI talent in-house to facilitate development and upkeep of the product, especially at the rate at which technology is evolving, that things become redundant before they have even evolved. So it's very important, and that's why we feel companies need to work with a solution partner who has the right set of capabilities instead of competing with them for talent in the market. The fourth one, which is very key topic, which is on data governance and security issues. Use of AI applications require, as we know, transmission, storage, and processing of data, some of which might include confidential information across systems. And hence, this gives rise to concerns related to data governance and security, including oversight, privacy, ethics, and compliance. Last but not the least, fear of being replaced by technology. And as a result, the resistance that comes inherently from employees in adopting the new tools. There's a general resistance, not just to the fact that they are getting replaced, but also to the changes that are required in established workflows and systems. Moving to the next one, I think here we will look to cover what the journey to the AI-powered supplier risk management should look like. And as the slide title mentioned, this is a marathon and should be seen as one, not like a sprint. While technology, we believe, has evolved a lot in terms of how it has evolved in recent years, the maturity, unfortunately, of AI adoption in third-party risk management program remains still in its early stages. Most organizations are in the initial levels of maturity, with only a very handful of them using AI to understand their third-party risk exposure. It is critical that you factor in the current maturity of your risk program and take a phased approach that allows you to scale at the right pace and at the budget which is convenient for your business. Like all transformations, successful AI adoption is built on four key pillars: technology, which is the foundational AI capabilities; data, which effectively means accessibility, relevance, and integrity of that data; people who bring in the human expertise and decision making for being held accountable; process, which is essentially predefined steps and rules for bringing together technology, data, and people to deliver the right business outcomes. At the end of the day, successful AI adoption calls for a few key considerations. First step is alignment with supplier risk management objectives. Connect AI solutions to clear value delivery that helps accomplish the organization's SRM objectives. Look for high impact quick wins to generate business value quickly and secure stakeholder buy in. And then you can gradually scale up once you have confidence of the key stakeholders. Second, having a robust data ecosystem. This means investing in an integrated data foundation containing clean, deduplicated, and standardized supplier data. You will need to work with a good service provider here and understand how they will make data meaningful and actionable. We'll look at how to define this good partner a bit later in our discussion. The third element, which is data governance, is an important aspect, but also, I believe, relatively easy to address. Most service providers today have adequate controls to manage these risks and can work with your IT teams to keep it well under control. It is vital, we believe, that you establish data governance policies to not just address the risk, but also to tap the opportunities that AI brings. Because a lot of times people focus so much on keeping the boundaries so strict that they forget that there are opportunities that are also getting missed by these severe data governance restrictions that are brought in. Then you have the AI and HI combination, which calls for augmenting human intelligence with AI to support better decision making. Keep in mind that AI is not accountable, so it must be a partner, not a rival to humans. Lastly, a lot of well-intended programs fall flat when change management is not handled well. Fear of job loss in this AI world is very natural and real. But our view is that procurement is one department that faces minimal risks as it is typically understaffed and there remains ongoing talent shortage. And in fact, AI can truly transform the job of a procurement and risk professional by making their role more strategic and in turn more interesting and high value. Key is to educate employees on this front and at the same time implement systems that are intuitive and easy to adapt for users. Address their concerns and challenges upfront with clear communication of the value of AI for risk and management professionals. Not to mention, train teams on how to use AI tools effectively.
Vabhav, sorry to jump in, but another great question. I thought I'd ask it at this stage because you've kind of emphasized the importance of data quality and a robust data ecosystem, I suppose, a few times here, and you've said it's essential. You also mentioned that this is something that is quite an easy thing to do now, or is something that you're confident can be done. Can you just explain what that looks like a little bit more? Because it's a question we always get asked: is how do you ensure your data is robust when you're managing when you're integrating AI into a platform? Equally, how do you ensure that you're not using false data in the first place, because that can obviously affect the output. So can you just go into detail a little bit more on that, if that's okay for our audience?
Yes, absolutely, James. In fact, I would say slight correction. It is critical, but not always the easiest thing to do. In fact, I believe this is an area where a lot of times organizations struggle the most and are not able to get the true value of AI is because of this data ecosystem not being proper. Because the most fundamental thing to understand here is that no matter how good the technology is, garbage in means garbage out. And this is why data handling is the most crucial part of any AI deployment. Many of the service providers, for instance, would focus on how they have access to various data sources, which is mostly through partnerships and is mostly a marketing gimmick. But this is where that is merely just the aggregation of data, and what you end up getting is a lot of information, data in an isolated manner, which is not helpful at all. The key is how to drive meaningful, actionable insights from that data when combined with an organization's internal data. Integrated data is essential, and it is usually not that straightforward to incorporate it into the risk model, like I was mentioning, and drive good results, especially when you are having a combination of sources and multiple discrete data points coming from different tech platforms as a conjunction and being assimilated into a single platform. Consider this: more than 90% of suppliers of any company are private companies. And data for private companies is either not available, or even when data is available for private companies, it is more than 12 months old at the very minimum. So, how does it help you predict future financial stability of the supplier? Very few organizations have an answer to solve this, because mostly the financial risk assessment provided by a very significant chunk of risk providers is based solely on this data, which is absolutely dated and makes no sense. Because at the end of the day, if something was pointing towards insolvency 12 months back, how will it help you overcome the challenges of that suppliers today, right? And hence this data assimilation, not just from the point of view of showing that data, but also how this sits in your risk program. How does your model incorporate that information to give you meaningful impact? Is this the most crucial element? Hope this answers the query, James.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think so. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I think I was referring to a slightly separate bit on the easiness. So it is obviously a massive challenge, and what I guess what would be sort of your advice on that, because that, as you said, lots of companies are working off data that may be considered out of date. It might not be considered out of date kind of in the, when working on this stuff kind of 10, 15 years ago. But now the way things are changing, the pace of change, the rapid kind of changes in the risk profile that we've seen this year, particularly, and we talked about this on yesterday's webinar, are significant. So what would be your solution to that? Is it this idea that, and you mentioned this earlier, that don't adopt AI as kind of the end result? You need to understand what you're adopting AI for, and that gives you an opportunity to pull in the right data and get the data that you need to pull in correctly. Is that one response you'd give? I'll let you kind of sort of elaborate though.
Yes, I think the service provider, I think basically what we are holding true is who is accountable for the insights, right? Because when you bring in multiple sources of information, right, we can't hold the forum to and say, hey, this is what I got. At the end of the day, your model, whatever your tool is, it needs to be working on top of that data as an integrated module, right? And that's where I think when you look at the structure of any product, any tool, any platform that you are using, how is it geared? Is it just giving you data, or is it giving you insights? And how are these insights tying up to your larger TPRM objectives? I think that becomes crucial, rather than just saying that, oh, because a lot of times, when you get these presentations, when you're speaking with service providers, you'll get a lot of things which look interesting, but what it's not telling you, and that's where you need more details, is how is this data going to come together to give you solving the purpose, like you just mentioned, right? How is AI solving my bigger TPRM problem?
Great, thank you.
Let me also give a very, very quick, very pointed answer maybe in that area with an example. Let's take financial analysis itself. Should you just depend on credit rating only? We should not. There are a lot of other risk signals that are available out there apart from the financial statements. Things like, any assets liens or any court lawsuits against a company's business assets, or credit rate score combined with financial statements. or monitoring financial or material news related to the business. So just with regard to financial statements, with all of these different sources that we were talking about, harnessing a great ecosystem of data points, it can give you visibility into the financial risk, and you don't just depend on just a type of information to assess your risk. The second part of it is, when data is less, there also the role of predictive analytics comes into play, which I think we will be covering going forward. Is that predictive analytics also helps you get an advanced view into the future, and that's something that's very critical or core to our solution as well, which can give you advanced visibility into how a company's risk trend will be 6 months or 12 months down the line. So that's also essential in such scenarios.
Very useful. Thank you, Simon. Really useful. I think put it into picture like that, and given an example, really helped from my side at least. So I'm sure it helped other attendees. I'll pass back to you for the final parts of the presentation.
Okay. So I'll cover this part on partner selection. With my experience in this area and having looked at so many different solutions, and given that I myself have to evolve our own platform, there are some things that we have learned through the many years, together. So one thing, when you select the right vendor or partner, it's important to look at the entire completeness of vision. Like, what is their vision for transforming your supplier risk management system? Are they only technology focused, or are they looking at all those four pillars of transformation which Vaibhav had shown earlier: technology, data, people, process? That entire focus is very important. It can't just be a play about just AI or just technology. Then the second important point in our view is getting things done versus providing a tool. When you work with a partner, the partner should not be someone who's just saying or giving you a tool, then which you need to manage, and there's no other role that they play. Ideally, it should be a partner who's going to, help you through the entire risk management life cycle. It's not just about the tool, but it's also about providing you with the right services as well as the expertise to help manage those risks. The third point is, can you get a partner that helps you scale your risk program in a phased manner? You cannot become perfect on the first day. So can you start with a small POC, start with a high impact area, which will have a big impact on your business, and then have a phase scale up of the program. So having a partner that can help you scale your program in a phased manner, that's important. Then accountability for insights. That's one area that Vaibhav touched upon earlier, and I think is very important, is that you need to stand behind your risk insights. You can't just, there are a lot of solutions out there where a lot of data is actually flowing in from third parties, and the software vendor is not really accountable for those insights. So AI and data ecosystem need to be backed up by accountability of the vendor as well. Predictive risk analytics, something that I brought up earlier. We are seeing a lot of cases where you have visibility into the current state of the supplier's risk, but you need advanced visibility into what will happen with them 6 months, 12 months down the line, so that you can take proactive action. This is very, very important in today's time. Second step is recommendations. In this area, as I mentioned earlier as well, AI will play a big role. And you need to see first how fast and efficient those recommendations can come through from those tools, because risk response is just as important as risk identification. So speed and actionability of those recommendations are just as important. Integrated due diligence capability. This is a new area that, a demand that we are seeing increasingly from all leading customers that we are working with, where instead of due diligence sitting in a silo where it is a one-off activity that you close off and there's no link to other things, you need due diligence insights as one of the sources of risk information. And then that needs to be combined with external and third-party data, as well as internal SLAs, KPIs, to give you a holistic view of risk on the supplier. And that's the meaning of integrated due diligence, so that everything is flowing through in a continuous loop instead of, isolated pieces. And then ongoing support. Can a vendor provide you ongoing support with things like training new members in your risk team, training your other business users. And if you need other help, especially in technology or process related areas, they can help you with those as well. It's a continuous improvement that needs to be area of focus. And can the vendor help you with that thing?
And if I may add, Sayan, wherever possible, I would suggest involving your SRM team in the selection process and don't shy away from detailed workshops with service providers. Often, this will give you true insights on strengths and limitations of the tool service provider, something that will never come out at the time of curated demos, which are shown at the time of making a sale. Also, we strongly suggest you plan a proof of concept before investing big. And when in doubt, when you are evaluating a couple of service providers, you may even want to do a parallel POC for 2-3 months so that you can evaluate everything yourself. Trust me, possible benefits from this will far outweigh the small additional price that you may have to pay for this parallel POC.
Sorry, guys, just to jump in again, because there's a question here on, well, I guess asking you, Sayan, on this sort of integrated due diligence capability point. You mentioned it was quite a new process. Can you shed a little bit more light on that? You had a sort of good question here that relates to it around should the AI tool integrate to main procurement systems to work? And you mentioned it, integrating to your SLAs and that kind of thing. So can you just shed a little bit more light on that for Satya, who asked the question?
Okay. So I think most risk practitioners and companies would know today risk data is sitting in a silo. You have third-party credit checks, third-party cybersecurity ratings that's shown separately. And then you have the due diligence questionnaire-based assessment, which is a separate process. And then you have risk monitoring using public data, news media, social media to monitor the risk. The question is, are all of these sources of information talking to each other today? They are not. In most companies, these are sitting in silos, not talking to each other. So integrated due diligence would mean an ability to combine this public, external, third-party data with supplier disclosures to get a more holistic view on these suppliers. And that's specifically an area that we are also working towards. It's not something that every provider is capable of doing, but it's an area which will increasingly will increasingly become more important, because when you need to make a decision on a supplier, you need a holistic view of the risk instead of trying to gather all information, make sense of it yourself, and then missing something in the process.
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, it needs to understand. Ideally, it should understand your specific business scenario, your specific business case, the risk involved in your specific kind of procurement processes, and understand whether there's any commonalities across what you're looking for from depending on your sector or what you're buying, etc. So very useful. Thank you very much. We've got some good questions in, so I'm going to pass over to Vaibhav just to finish off. I know you've got a little bit of explanation as to what the Smart Cube from WNS is all about and how it can help, but we'll come to some of these questions straight after that, if that's okay. So I'll pass back to you, Vaibhav, for the final section.
Thanks, James. So we'll do a quick overview on Smart Risk Pro, which is the most comprehensive and advanced third-party risk intelligence platform in the market, developed by WNS Procurement. It has been built on all the principles we just discussed so far and designed most crucially by a risk expert, that is Sayan himself, taking into account our nearly 2 decades practical and functional knowledge of working with world's leading organizations. So we have done a lot of trial and errors to come up with what we feel works practically on the ground, right? Because through the help of our managed services team, through the help of our relations as part of the larger WNS organizations, we got very useful information to feed into our tool in particular. The platform is built leveraging our 2000 plus strong team of data scientists and tech professionals, bringing in the best and latest in AI, but at the same time, keeping the roots of TPRM in place. At the heart of it is the most sophisticated and proprietary risk model, which has been trained on last 10-year plus data for fast, and deep risk discovery and mitigation, with the most extensive and unparalleled coverage spanning 50 plus core metrics and sub-metrics across financial, operational, macroeconomic, geopolitical, ESG, cybersecurity, and compliance parameters, as well as ability to integrate any custom parameters that an organization might choose to bring on its own. On a near real-term basis, customers get visibility as well as predictive outlook into business risks associated with their suppliers, along with the risk mitigation strategies. And we don't just give scores, but also analysis backed by all underlying data and information. And all of this you get at a very competitive price, bringing tremendous ROI to our customers from day one. Most importantly, like Sayan pointed out, we don't just provide you a tool, but a complete solution, providing you flexibility to configure your risk parameters, get fit for purpose assessment for your strategic, non-strategic, and sub-tier suppliers. You can engage us at your own pace, factoring in your maturity and budget and scale up as needed. And while our platform is very intuitive to follow, you get support of our in-house team of procurement and risk specialists who can not only train your team, but can also support in implementation and execution of your TPRM program, just as an extension of your team. Proof of the pudding is in the pie, as they say, right? So we have 20 of the world's Fortune 500 companies as our customers with 100% retention rate and YOY growth rate of over 60% every year for the last 3 years. And each of the companies who trialed SmartRisk Pro over these 3 years has just expanded its relationship with us and continues to use SmartRisk Pro now as their primary risk intelligence tool. We are not stopping here. We stay strongly committed to innovate and are investing continuously to strengthen our offering with each passing day. Already in production, which Sayan was referring to, and scheduled for release at the beginning of 2026 are a few game-changing and industry-first features that we are introducing with the SmartRisk Pro. These include a fully integrated supplier due diligence and supplier mapping module, as well as a fully automated AI-powered risk remediation capabilities. All of you who are looking to strengthen your TPRM program, I would urge you to compare us against your incumbent service provider and see the difference firsthand. You can reach out to Sayan or me, and we shall be happy to arrange a workshop or a demo for you specifically.
Thank you, both of you. And look, yeah, as Vaibhav just said, if you want anything more and want any more information from the WNS team, please feel free to reach out and get in touch. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. But we'll get back to some questions to finish us off. So thank you for everyone who sent those in. There's a good question here. It's a question we get quite often, and I guess related sort of jumps straight off from what you've just said, Vaibhav, in terms of how do you ensure that the AI output is truthful, isn't biased, is protected against from hallucination that we've heard so much about. So I guess it's about the reliability. Can you give us a quick taste of how you ensure that output is reliable?
Sure, James, and great question. So firstly, let me mention that the core model is built on principles. Core model for our platform is built on principles of machine learning and data science, where you don't face these issues of hallucinations, which are typically associated with GenAI. Now we are using GenAI, but this is largely for analyzing the summary, outlook, and recommendations, and not as the core model for building it. Second, the LLM models of today have advanced fair degree, and the accuracy is usually upwards of 95% with the most advanced LLM models, such as the OpenAI, right? Having said that, no LLM model is 100% accurate, and this is where our analyst support comes in, wherein they review all analysis and recommendations delivered by GenAI before it is pushed out to the customers. I would like to highlight that when I was talking about capabilities of SmartRisk Pro, I use the term near real-time analysis, which basically means that we have kept a couple of hours window for our analysts to review before any alert, analysis, or recommendation is pushed out, as we recognize that though the error rate is possibly very low, 1 to 2%, but then who knows what impact this 1% can have. So we need to be absolutely certain. Moreover, every suggestion, analysis, and recommendation you get from the Smart Risk Pro platform, you get reference to the underlying data, tracing back to the original source of data. So these combination of measures, right, make sure that at least when I talk about the Smart Risk Pro, that you get true non-hallucinated information and not information, actually insights and actions to work on.
Thank you. And I think it's important to note there that, you know, the humans are involved at your end as well, and are involved in kind of sort of spotting those risks that might come through the radar that might not be as accurate as they need to be. So there is that human element to come in as well, which I think is an important point. Great question here, and this is probably a tough one, but Sign, I'll come to you on this one initially, but a question around how AI is helping to discover or root out causes of modern slavery in the supply chain. Obviously, this is a huge risk, the labour supply risk. Is there anything that AI is doing beyond what humans can do? Obviously, you know, it's only working with the data that it's got, but have you seen instances where this has really supported organisations in spotting or at least being comfortable that they aren't being impacted by potential modern slavery in their supply chains?
Okay, I'll answer that. So AI by itself will not be doing a better job unless you have access to all the right data points that are out there. I think for the success of this thing, like where we say we want to highlight all instances of forced labor, child labor issues, I think it's goes back to the original point of keeping all your data points connected and integrated. These lapses in forced child labor could come from any of sources, like a news media where someone has reported a compliance issue, or it could be buried deep into disclosures of the supplier where they mention that they do not have a particular policy in place, which could be a reason for a potential future issue, right? So I think it's important to bring all of these things together, the data integrated data system that we were talking about, and then layering on AI on top of it to be able to unearth this risk insights, and more importantly, to see AI as unearthing these insights in a faster and more productive way instead of seeing AI as the as providing a more accurate insight. So that foundational level thing where you need data and a very wide coverage with AI layered in to give you fast insight, that's what should be the primary focus here.
Yeah, interesting. It's almost creating those layers of compliance checks and adding to what you're already doing, right? And I think, you know, spotting any gaps that you might miss, which is critical. And these things we talk about modern slavery is hidden, and therefore sometimes there are hidden instances or hidden examples of where organizations or suppliers you're using might not have the right modern slavery policies in place that are necessary for your region of the world or to meet the compliance that you have to. So that's really useful. A question here from Michael, and thanks for sending this in, Michael. And it's a common question, I think. There's two parts to this, and Vabhav, this is directed at you. So if you're happy to answer this, I'd appreciate your perspective on 2 points. What is or are the best ways to coach or I guess convince the C-suite or boards of directors to consider effective AI adoption? So I guess how do you sell the use of adoption and AI uptake into your kind of C-suite, those people maybe signing off that final budget? And secondly, once that's in place, any suggestions on how to train the procurement function, the wider function, the people involved to ensure that it's successfully adopted and not just kind of left by the side, even if you adopt it in the first place. So I guess how do you create buy-in, and then how do you create buy-in throughout the whole team once you've got the senior buy-in?
Yeah, I think the buy-in first and foremost has to be for the overall third-party risk management platform, right? Not AI specifically. And how you have to layer it in is how current TPRM program of the organization will become more effective with the AI infused into it. What I mean by that is that to achieve those goals, right? Like I was pointing out about the survey, the key thing you are trying to avoid is the loss avoidance, right? Because of your critical supplier failing, right? Now, what AI is going to bring in is proactiveness, right? Whether it's predictive analytics bringing in and telling you in advance, right? So instead of waiting for the event to happen, typically you wait for the event happens, and what you're doing is now act upon it, right? But I see TPRM process as pretty much like your health insurance program. It is like a goalkeeper in a football game, right? It should be invisible so long as the goal scoring opportunity does not come in. And the lesser the goal scoring opportunities are, the more effective your program is. And this AI is what's bringing in that layer, which is making sure that you remain ahead of the curve. So the next big event that comes in, you can't avoid that event. What you can do is, and I think very honestly today, if you stop focusing on the efficiencies, the few pennies that you can save because of bringing in the AI, and focus on the larger objective, how the COVID, how the various wars, how the macroeconomic environment, how the tariffs, right? The impact of an effective TPRM process, which will be boosted by AI, can have can have on your decision making. I think most C-suite people accept, acknowledge it. I think the area where we miss the ball is where we focus unnecessarily on AI rather than on the net outcome. I think I'll go back to that same principle, talk about TPRM, then go on to how AI will be enabling it.
Brilliant,
Sorry,
thank
I'm
you.
missing the second part of your question. I'm forgetting.
Second part was just how do you embed that kind of use of AI into your wider team?
Correct. So I think that's where I think the phased approach, like I was mentioning, our experiences, it's at a very nascent stage in terms of adoption, right? And instead of coming up with a far-fetched solution which gives the future of 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, start slow, bring the tool which is easy for people to understand, first of all. Second, the solution that you are that you are deploying should be something that you can train to your people, right? They get them familiar with it and then scale up, right? Instead of trying to get that big buck answer, avoid that. I think that would be our suggestion, especially because most of us and most of the procurement and professional people that are out there are not so tech savvy as we speak today, that they will just get hang of everything, right? And then it becomes too overwhelming for people to then really accept and acknowledge that.
Fantastic, thank you. We just got one time for one more question. I'm just going to sort of try and get through this quite quickly if we can. So I don't know who wants to take this, but a question from Mohammed. Does your tool consider or help you spot the root causes of risks as well as the corrective actions you can take? So I guess how far down the sort of risk profile does it go? I don't know who wants to take that one briefly.
So I'll come in here. So yes, it's a matter. I think we need to demo the tool separately with you, Mohammed. But yes, we do provide these deep visibility into risk. We wouldn't be bringing it up unless we are able to show it. So that deep visibility is very important, where you identify what is the reason for a particular risk to emerge. And I think the other point on the corrective actions, that's also something like Weber mentioned, is something that we are going to launch pretty soon, where you'll have AI powered recommendations coming very fast, which can give you actionable insights, and it'll be all automated. So given the risk threshold, risk area, it'll give you automated actionable insights that you can take up next.
In a nutshell, Mohammed, absolutely. The answer to your question is yes, it provides to the T, because I think one of the things we pride on is the depth of information, right? That it is backing up, right? From for whatever recommendation, whatever analysis is coming out, right? We absolutely, and like Sayan mentioned, I think you will see if you give us time. I think in the demo we'll be happy to tell you and show you exactly how deep it goes.
Fantastic, thank you both, and Mohammed, feel free to get in touch as our speaker said earlier if you want any more info on that. Well, look, that brings us to the end of today, and I'm going to there's a final question here, and I'm actually going to try my hand at answering this, which I don't often do. I'm usually the one asking them. So, question from Tamara on will there be a summary readout of the meeting? So I'm going to try my best ChatGPT AI impression and give you three takeaways, which I can swear I did not use AI for. So for me. there's a couple of key points that you both brought out. AI is a means to an end, not an end in itself. So really understand the reason behind adopting AI. And in this particular webinar, we've talked about your TPRM program. Really understand what you're looking to get out of that, and what you need from your AI before I guess you go ahead and adopt it out of sheer FOMO, or out of concern that you just think you need to use AI for a reason. So understand your specific risk management objectives, I think. Secondly, you need to bring your people along with you whenever this is, as Cyan and Vab have said earlier, this is a whole change transformation program if you're adopting AI like full scale. So, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Bring your people with you alongside you. Try and embed it within your team, but make them understand what you're using it for, as opposed to just saying that we've got AI now and expecting them to use it, because you need that explanation as well. And finally, I think, as we've talked about here today quite a lot, AI is not a magic bullet to everything. It is really helping in a number of things, and as we saw, it's going to continually help in the next 12 to 24 months in analysing risk, spotting risk, continuous monitoring of those risks, and also layering the kind of due diligence checks and processes that you're doing, as long as that data input is right. But the relationships with suppliers and the knowledge of where those risks might lie in your supply chain, the knowledge of what risks are most impactful for your business, and also your sort of relationships with your suppliers are critical. And that is where professionals, CIPS members and non-members alike are going to be really important in the future, both with validating AI's outputs, but also creating those rules and managing those supplier relationships, which are human at the end of the day. So really, really useful, fascinating webinar. Thank you both so much for your insights. Really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who sent those questions in. I hope I answered your question there tomorrow, but I'm sure if you ran this webinar through AI, you might get some additional checks that I've missed. Look, we've got one more session for Risk and Resilience Week from CIPS coming tomorrow for you. We're going to hear the story of how one procurement and supply function in the education sector really elevated their understanding of the risks that they faced and increased the visibility of suppliers by undergoing the CIPS Procurement Excellence Program. You may have heard of it. It's PEP, as it's otherwise known, but it's we're gonna get into the detail a little bit, look at how that works in practice for procurement functions. So do join us for that and see how one company in the education sector helped elevate their risk management capabilities. Plus, there is a 2-day CIPS Risk and Resilience Skills training course coming up, I think early December, 3rd to the 4th of December, I believe. And we'll pop a link through to that so you can have a look and sign up if you're looking to elevate your understanding of risk and the strategies that you can take and the tools that you can use to manage that risk in your supply chain and drive that resilience. As we heard yesterday, this is such a fraught period, so it'll be really interesting going forward. Look, don't forget, there will be a follow-up email with the on-demand link to watch this webinar back. So do take a look, do share if you thought this was interesting and think others in your team or your colleagues might do so as well. So please do keep an eye out for that email. But that is all from us here today at CIPS. So thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.